Welcome to the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership, the podcast that cuts through the noise to deliver real-world leadership wisdom from the front lines of business. I'm your host, Billy Duren, CEO, curious learner, and passionate student of people and performance. Whether you're leading a team of 10 or 10,000, this show is your go-to resource for creative insights that drive results and build people. Whether you're already in the CEO chair or you're just beginning your journey, this is a theory, it's the nuts and bolts. Let's go to work. Hello, everyone, and welcome into the meeting room. Today, we're going to be talking about leadership because this is the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast. I'm Billy Duren, the host. In today's conversation, we're going to take you right to the front line of innovation. I've been looking forward to this for a little bit. We're right on the forefront of what we're talking about almost every day in our organization. Our guest today is Ray Brown. Ray Brown is the CEO and board chair of Scintilla EG Holding Company. And under the holding company, Ray, make sure I get this right, we got Esco Electric, Esco Automation, Construction Management Services, and Esco Safety and Power. Did I get all that right?
Billy, you knocked it out of the park.
Knocked it out of the park. So, Ray, with over 400 professionals across 8 states, the Esco Group delivers expertise in automation, electrical construction, engineering, instrumentation, and safety consulting from world-class facilities to mission-critical manufacturing processes. Esco partners with clients nationwide to improve safety, efficiency, and productivity through innovative systems, integration, arc flash hazard analysis, IT testing, and industrial 4.0 automation. So, Ray, welcome to the podcast.
Billy, really appreciate the invite and excited to talk about nuts and bolts of leadership and whatever else comes across your mind there.
Well, you know, I'll tell you what I really love about your bio, and we've had a couple of chances to talk before. Almost every paragraph in your bio ends with someone who invests in people. I mean, what a great thing to be known for, the fingerprints and the legacy that you're going to leave not only on your company, but in the employee ownership space. I'm just so proud to know and to learn from people like you because I have a passion for leadership and personal development, professional development. So thank you for what you're doing to develop and invest in people.
You're welcome. And I love that. We're all about people as well. And there's certainly a lot of people that I owe a lot of gratitude, thanks to, and just trying to pass that along, that legacy of being people-oriented and developing people for not just our organizations, but all the clients, communities that we serve as well.
Well, we're going to talk about some of that service that you're doing in communities, and we're going to give you a chance to talk about some of those people that's made an impact on you throughout your journey. But Ray, I'm just curious. So I noticed that many of the ESOP conferences we're attending now, we hear a lot about Holdco, the holding companies. What made sense for you guys to move in that direction of separating the business units compared to just folding it under one tent? Was there any one driving factor? Tell us a little bit about what you guys went through, because I know there are a lot of companies that are considering this model.
Yeah, it was probably threefold, Billy. Thanks for that question. I think, certainly the first and foremost, I think it gets back to the culture that we're trying to drive. We have 3 different distinct business units. We have an electrical, Esco Electric, 200 electricians, Sparkies run around. It's a union-based electrical workforce, trades-oriented. Got a high-skilled workforce, a little bit different culture than the other 2 business units. Esco Automation is, a bunch of electrical engineers, folks that have gone to secondary education, different types of culture, more in the office, but the same related clients. All of them get out to the clients' industrial facilities, automating. And then we have our third division, that compliance division, focused on safety, arc flash, electrical engineering. So we knew we had 3 different distinct business units. And over the last really probably 10 years, we tried to drive this one culture kind of fitting all, one size fits all, and it really wasn't working. So that was probably the driving factor, just to really create that individuality out of the business unit, to let those cultures shine, to be the best businesses that they could. Second is just, from mergers and acquisitions, how we grow our ESOP portfolio. And so we created Scintilla when we did our second stage transactions. So we're active in the M&A space, and really Scintilla is really, our vision for that is building and sustaining kick-ass companies. And so we focus more on development of a Scintilla level. And, and the lastly is we still want to create that tight one-stop shop. All those three business units serve all similar clients. They're all focused on that employee ownership, driving lasting value for our clients, our employees, and our community. So there's a commonality that drives all of them. So it really was those three factors that drove us to that holding company strategy.
I really love the name Scintilla because I was asking you about tell our listening audience what it is, what Scintilla means. I love this.
Yeah, so Scintilla is Italian for spark, and so we're going and creating our name. I know you and I have a fellow friend, Daniel Goldstein. He was the CEO of Foliance Company. They are a local ESOP company, and actually one of their past VPs on our board. And I was asking her, it's like, so Foliance, what does that stand for? She's like, it's like Italian for employee ownership. So a little hats off to Daniel and Foliance. We kind of stole their little mojo around that Italian. But Spark for us is really the idea of creating something big, certainly related to the industries that we serve as well.
Well, I love that name. And Daniel told me, I said, when he introduced and set us up for this meeting, he said, listen, Ray Brown's got more energy than you're probably going to be ready for. So buckle up for our audience listening today. This is going to be a high impact. And I knew that the spark was really there even in the first introductory meeting. So Ray, when we kind of pivot to some of the questions I want to get to with you, when it comes to, I know everybody likes to use the phrase cutting edge, but oftentimes in industries, particular industries like our business at times, automation, even though it is advanced greatly in many industries, and some industries are slow to getting to that. So I would say for us and some of the people that'll be listening, whether the automation is cutting edge or not, it is something that we are going to have to move to as organizations where we find efficiencies. We've been talking about the reduced workforce over the last, several months and how we are going to fill the need for the employees, the employee owners, the value growth and all those things. We have to be looking at automation. So what kind of the backstory and what drove you towards this investment so heavily in innovation and in automation?
Yeah, no, great question, Billy. And it really goes back to why Esco Automation was created in the first place. So it was back in 1988. My mentor and the person we bought the business from, Dave Engel, and his father, Wayne Engel, the founder of our business, they had a large cereal client manufacturer here in town, and they basically got invited to come out, and they're going to do the electrical construction part of that project. And it was to automate basically a shipping piece of their business to get their cereal out of their plant and into their trucks. And they got introduced to some electrical engineer person by name of John Resky, and that was their introduction to automation. And Wayne, being the entrepreneur that he was, he took that Mr. John Resky to dinner that night, and he became our first Esco Automation employee the next day. So since 1988, we recognized, coming from our electrical construction roots, that manufacturing businesses need to automate to stay competitive, just like yourselves. Albeit, I think U.S. manufacturers have been a little bit slow at the game. I did a little bit of research. It's actually gotten a lot better. I think something like 52% of manufacturers today have actually started investing in innovation and AI. And that's actually a big increase in the last 5 years. So if you, like a lot of other manufacturers, are looking at that, you guys are on the right page. And that's what we do. It's really about, increasing throughput, helping support that workforce development. Certainly quality comes into play. And what we're seeing is, certainly companies that have dabbled in it, that 52%. But we're seeing a lot of businesses focus on the enterprise strategy, from the C-suite down to the plant floor, how they can develop a, innovation automation strategy that focuses on those key gain creators, what I would say, or those pain relievers in their manufacturing process.
So Ray, what would you say the barriers to entry are on this? So you got manufacturers say some of the U.S. is a little behind the curve. Why is that? Is it just that we are so rooted in, we just done it this way for so long, no need to change? Is it an investment hurdle? What are the barriers to entry there? Is it more mindset than it is actually money?
No, I think it's probably threefold, Billy. I think it's a great question. I think first and foremost, if you look at a lot of the niche, smaller manufacturers, maybe in their small towns in Midwest, they've been supplied with a pretty resilient workforce, over the last several decades. And it's really not until the last 10 years, you think about that, the baby boomers, that was something like 70 million baby boomers that were in the workforce. And me, I'm a Generation Xers. There's like 60 million of us, right? So all those manufacturers, they're seeing that baby boomer, population finally retire. And so just the need for workforce development is really prevalent in the last 10 years. I think the other piece with that is, a lot of manufacturers, they're getting to very unique micro-driven processes where they've got 3 or 4 key clients. They want some specialized product. And their only way to deliver those specialized products is really through innovation, automation, to make it make sense from a financial standpoint.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned AI. It's become almost a standard question now on our podcast, because if you're not thinking about it, you're hearing about it. And if you're not thinking about it, the ship is leaving the dock. So when you hear AI and you hear companies talking to you about it and asking you about it, how are you answering the questions in general? So if you have a client that says, "Hey, Ray, I hear all this jazz about AI. What are you guys doing to help me get there and to start helping me think about it?"
Yeah, I think, for like us, we're like any other manufacturing process. We're evolving our own AI strategy. It definitely, to me, it starts with, just that curiosity. It's actually one of our core values. And really, if you want to get better at anything, I think you got to have that mindset of curiosity. Is there a better way to do something better? Certainly is the buzzword. You see all these big data centers being built. But curiosity, then it goes into, for me, it goes into, how do you accelerate what you do personally? So I use AI to be a better CEO. There's a lot of things that I would rely on, from a team around me that now I can use AI to accelerate. It definitely doesn't get you to the end game. It gets you to about 80%. You still need to make it, fine tune it, make it right. But then you're taking that, then you're really focused on, organizationally, what are those outcomes that you're trying to drive organizationally? And so at the end of the day, you really, it starts with that curiosity, but then you got to build that governance document. And then you really got to start, how do you start scaling those efficiencies across the business? And there's certainly things that we'll deploy AI bots around, like HR. We have an employee owner that's got a question around HR, so they don't have to track down, 2 or 3 different HR professionals. They can go to our HR bot and really get the same information. And so we're really looking to, as you develop that AI, strategy, certainly it starts with curiosity, just trying to figure out how do you use it, accelerator, how do you make it yourself better, but then really developing a team that's developing that footprint for how you can leverage it across the organization.
So it's interesting because the next question I was going to kind of go towards was, how does employee ownership help the innovation automation process? But as you are talking about curiosity and how do you communicate to your team to stay curious? What does that look like in a meeting with Ray Brown? How are you communicating to, whether it's your executive or your senior leaders, how are you encouraging them to stay curious?
Yeah, it's I think with anything, 7 times, 7 different ways. Sometimes you got to repeat yourself. I'll roll up my sleeves. I'll actually, show use cases. This is how I used it. I love our employee experience director, Megan Parsons, and she has this Esco term that, us as leaders, we need to teach our people how to fish. And so that means, rolling up our sleeves, showing them use cases, but not doing the work for them. Have them jump in there and giving our team members opportunities to fail. That's how we learn. We learn more probably through failure than we do through doing things the right way. So giving team members the opportunities to, those little sprints, those little opportunities where things are low risk, they got an opportunity to demonstrate that innovation, that AI. And, you got to go where the team's at, and you got to be part of it and show them that, I'm using this, and you probably heard the same saying, the team goes only as fast as their leader. So if we as leaders aren't adopting these things, at the end of the day, we are a culture of behaviors, right? And behaviors are basically duplicated over time. So if they see positive behaviors around looking at AI, curiosity, how it works, we're going to see more of that throughout our entire organization.
I love that giving permission to fail. I love that how you communicated that. I think it's important for leaders to learn how to teach our teams that, first of all, we're not perfect. We've failed, sharing some of those failures, but then also giving them permission to fail. And then you reminded me of a quote from part of a book that John Maxwell wrote, The Law of the Lid, that the team's never going to grow higher than the leader, and how we have to invest in our own curiosity if we're going to ask that of our team. So, Ray, one of the challenges that we hear often when we talk about automation, robotics, innovation, that we're trying to job eliminate. So when you're communicating not only to your team, but to your clients in terms of efficiency around automation, how are you kind of landing that plane with the fear of, oh, they're just trying to replace me. They want to get rid of me. How are you landing that plane?
Yeah, I think, with anything, there's certainly a lot of motion that goes in with change. So one of the things that we try to focus on is just that emotional intelligence of, hey, we're not trying to change. We're just trying to improve. A lot of team members, it's like, I'm going to have a really tired changing the way I do that. I've done this forever, but I can improve a little bit. So just how we engage, how we communicate, just being smarter around that emotional intelligence piece, and then just supplying the facts. I think in U.S. manufacturing, I did some research on this in preparation for our discussion today. There's something like 415,000 open manufacturing jobs in June of 2025. Long-range estimates suggest that in 2033, there's going to be something like 3.8 million hires needed. That will potentially, 1.9 million are potentially going to go unfulfilled. So as we as employee owners, we as other manufacturers, other businesses, we are going to have to adopt this. The workforce just is not there. So the quicker we can get beyond that it's not replacing, and actually the facts support it. The innovation, the automation, it may look like it's displacing a job, sure, maybe within that business, but from an industry-wide or, even more globally, it's actually improving and adding jobs to our workforce.
I actually like the way that you frame that up with the improvement versus the change. We all hear that, nobody likes to change. We've done it this way forever, and we're just going to keep doing it that way. Well, those are those companies that are getting mothballed and you can't find them anymore. But the fact, as you just said, though, the facts support that we are going to we have to change towards improvement in automation and innovation will help us get there. So Ray, when we kind of pivot to some more of the questions that I've been really interested in hearing your take on these things. Industrial manufacturing is often struggles with attracting young talent. So, we look into our plant floors and we see guys that have been out there on the plant floor for 20, 30 years, but we kind of along the same lines we were just talking about, we don't see that backfill coming in with 18, 19, 20-year-old Votech students that have, they've got that mechanical mind. They're kind of gearheads, guys that love to work on their trucks, those kind of things. And we're always looking for those people that have that mechanical mind. How are we as manufacturers and looking toward this automation and innovation and even the employee that would be drawn towards that? How do we attract these young guys? How do we attract these young folks into our manufacturing processes?
Yeah, I think, probably similar ways that we attract folks in, innovation, automation, electrical contracting. Certainly the starting point is at that manufacturing level, but what is the journey? How are you going to develop those people over time? What is the leadership opportunities? Those are the things that we talk about in the recruiting process. It's like, we want to get you in the door, but once you get in the door, it's like, we're here to actually develop you, your entire career. If you want to stay with us, there's opportunities to go deep, into that technical manufacturing process. Or if you want to go into the leadership side, all those opportunities are going to be with you, and we're going to invest in that journey with you. So I think, if you really promote that, holistic career journey, it's just not a job, it's a career, it's a journey. And, so how do you make that real to that person that doesn't want to go to the 4-year school, that, they want to come and opportunity to come work for you with very little or low debt, and you're going to invest in their development. I think that's a pretty compelling story.
Also think too, as we communicate a news story, and that news story is, many of us grew up thinking that, the only pathway to success was I got to graduate from high school, I got to get a 4-year degree, and then I got to go get a job. The truth is those operational professions, those operational vocations are now going to be, as you said, the quote you gave a while ago, however many millions of jobs is going to be required, and half of those are going to go unfulfilled just by the law of supply and demand. The increased cost for those type of jobs is going to provide quite a fruitful career. So but we've got to find a way to tell that story. And I'm afraid at times, that manufacturers are not telling the right story. It's about come and look at a career as opposed to, as you just said, you just coming to find a job. We're looking for people that is looking for that career. But I think back to 20-year-old Billy. I'm not sure I had that mindset to think about I'm coming somewhere and this is going to be my career. This is a place where I made some folded money so I could take my date out on Friday night. So how do we help shift that mindset?
Yeah, I think, first is, I think, just figuring out who we're communicating with and how we're communicating with them. I think the good news is, talking about those demographics, you talk about, the millennials or the Generation I's, and I don't want to, say this because we're just putting them in a bucket, but it allows us to talk more, I guess at a high level, so there's like 80 million folks that are in that demographic. And, I was at a ESOP conference in, I think Houston, and probably the last year and a half. And the person that was in that conference was talking about that generation, 80 million folks. And it's like a third of them, are kind of relaxers. They just want, hey, give me a good job and I'll go to day, and just pay me some, what it is. And I'm just focused on just that moment. A third of them, they want to focus. They want a business that gets behind a cause. How do we doing something that's more important than just manufacturing something? And then a third of them are traditionalists. They're like the Xers and the baby boomers. They're just working hard. They're going to show up every day. And so I think we need to learn how to communicate with those 1/3 and 1/3 and 1/3, because all of our organizations, certainly ESOP, we're community minded. We have a big cause on trying to make our communities better. It's just not about, making money. It's just not about electrical engineering. Really, that's a piece of driver to that community piece. And sure, like all businesses, we need so many different roles. That if we want a person that's just showing up, can give us 8 for 8 and do a good job, those are roles that we have. And then those traditionalists that want to go deeper and wider, having that career journey conversation with them. So I think we need to tailor, let's recognize who we're talking with, where are they at? All these folks. I love that you guys are doing a podcast. I can't tell you how many times I've walked around Esco and they have all these youngsters with their headphones on up there. Like, hey, what are you listening? You got some cool music going on? Will you share it with me? And they're like, no, I'm listening to a podcast. And how do I get better at something? And then, so that's where they're at. So how do we find out where they're at, where they play? How do we meet them in the middle, connect with them, and really tell them about our story, and tailor it to where they're at, in their journey at that particular time. Because there's 80 million folks. We just got to go find them.
Yeah, and I love the way you say that, tailoring the story to who you're talking to. And I will say this: we've started something recently in the last couple of years. We've started a new employee ownership group, the NEO meetings, and we are bringing people in to tell them about our culture. And really, just as you said, we're kind of tailoring the story so they can hear not only what we do, but who we are, and hopefully asking them to hook up to our team to be a part of their career journey, not just their job opportunity. So we're on the podcast today with Ray Brown. He is the CEO of the Scintilla EG Holding Company and all of the Esco group. The banner that is the Esco group, Ray's leading this dynamic. Scintilla, the spark. I love that. We'll be right back. This is the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast.
Threaded Fasteners is a 100% employee-owned company with a mission to create value in and for the people we serve. If you're interested in learning more about our people-centric culture or need a customized fastener solution, send us an email at culture@threadedfasteners.com. That's culture@threadedfasteners.com.
All right, we're back with Ray Brown. Ray, just love your company. I love everything about the things that you're doing in people development. What is it, though? What's the secret sauce? What makes Esco Group such a great place to work?
Well, it's got to be my good looks, Billy, for sure. No, just kidding. No, I'm a middle-aged balding guy, so it's definitely not my good looks. At the end of the day, I know we all say this. It's our people. We're not in the widget business. We have 400 professionals, and one of the things I'm most proud of, honestly, and I tell this to our team a lot, is we have a union workforce, Esco Electric. We have Esco Automation, non-union workforce, Esco Power and Safety and Construction Management Services. And regardless, even if you're a union, you can become an employee owner from anywhere within our organization. And what I'm most proud of is all of our leaders within the company have really grown up with the company and been with us for a long, long time. I'm just celebrating my 33rd year with Esco. I grew up with the company. It's my first job out of college. And I've had the opportunity to walk side by side with just some incredible, leaders, in my first part of my career, first 10 years that have since retired. Unfortunately, some of them have passed away. And it's been on the backs of all those professionals. And one of the things I'll pride myself with is failure is never an option. We go and work side by side with our clients in some of the toughest conditions on holidays and vacations when the rest of the country is out on beaches or celebrating Labor Day, and our folks are in the plants getting the work done. And we will not stop until those projects are done, and we support each other, teamwork, collaboration. It's all those individuals that really make up the Esco group of companies. And what we try to focus in on is the organizational capabilities that we deliver. Certainly we have individuals that shine, but it's the entire organizational capabilities that we can deliver. And, I'm very proud of, my team, all of our hardworking electricians, engineers, project managers, folks that have just started with the company to the folks that have retired. And that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on, is creating lasting value for our employees. One of the most joy, honestly, that I get is we do some big employee events throughout the year. One of them is our holiday celebration, where we're bringing in just anyone that could show up for a holiday party in January. And I look out, and we've got 250 to 300 people in the crowd, and I see the families, the spouses, and to me, that's what we're about, creating that lasting value. You go to a ball game, Colonel's game. That's our local affiliate with the Minnesota Twins, and you see all the kids that come to those games, supporting those families, the lasting value. You see the community things that we support. Honestly, that's at the end of the day, that's what we're about. We're about people and the things that we support, and we give it our all every day, Billy.
I love that, and I love that line, creating lasting value, because, the lasting value is not just for the employee owner. It's for those wives, for those husbands, for those children, and the community. As a matter of fact, I read a really neat piece on your website about the community work you did during a flood that struck the community several years ago. And I was reading through it and reading some of the quotes, and just kind of give you a chance to talk about how that impacted your team, and then what came from that. It was an effort that was incredible, but I'm imagining it had some lasting impacts, not only on the community, but on your team.
Yeah, I appreciate that question as well. And, first and foremost, I just want to, give a shout out to our founder, Wayne Engel, and his son, Dave Engel, as a second generation owner that we bought the company for. It was really, they planned the roots in our community involvement, and that legacy still is today. Just a quick funny story of why we do the things that we do. We're in Marion, Iowa. It's a small suburb of Cedar Rapids. Wayne wanted to move our offices up to Uptown Marion, and right next door there was a XXX theater that was having some movies that weren't so great for our community. And so what did Wayne do as an entrepreneur? He bought that business. It was his two sons, Dave and Dan. It was their first endeavor into running a business. So they turned into a dollar family video. And it was really from those roots that we do the things that we do today. And, from the flood, if your community's suffering, if there's these horrific events, you really can't get on with the business of doing what you do on a day-to-day until you take care of your community. And your community is your family members, your team members, and if they have issues that are going on at home, they're not going to be able to do their best work for you. And so we need to go upstream. How do we go upstream into the community? How do we create better communities for our families to really live and thrive? And if they're blessed to grow a family. And so the things that we've done through the floods, derecho, we got hit with never heard of a derecho. It's actually called a land hurricane back in 2020. And been some pretty horrific events that's hit the Cedar Rapids area. And, we just roll up our sleeves with a lot of other great community members. We get out there to help really stabilize the community and allow all of our employees to get back to what they do best.
So it's a great story, and I love listening to leaders. I mean, I can almost hear it in your voice. It's just kind of settling into this, as the CEO and leader and being a part of that. When we're in those events, we had some hurricanes that came through and impacted several of our branch locations, and to see our team rally around. And they just jumped in their trucks and just took off and just worked with chainsaws and tractors. And they were down there helping their team. And they just went from team member to team member's home, making sure everybody was okay. And, you're no longer, the supervisor or boss anymore. This is just team members jumping in. And I could tell in your voice just to know that impacted you and how that impacted your team. Ray, you're an investor, and you've been investing in innovation and automation. We've been talking a lot about that today. But when it comes to investing in people, and particularly in leaders, what are you doing to bring along, to coach, mentor, teach, and grow your next group of leaders at Esco?
Yeah, great question again. I think there isn't one size fits all. Certainly, we focus on being transparent. So you got town halls, how do we communicate where the company is going, how we're doing, investing in personal coaches, mentoring, how do we get, senior leaders to be mentors, building a great internship program that we call our summer learning program, giving those leaders opportunities to really lead, these small micro opportunities to, fail, succeed, learn from those things. As employees start leading people, we're trying to get them acclimated to, trying to create a common language. So one of the things that we're investing in, we're about 2 years into the journey, is the EOS, the Operational Operating System. One of the things they talk about is emotional intelligence in there. So there's a book, Strength Finders, which is a great, just what I would call introductory into AI. There's a book called How to Be a Great Boss. And it's just some really practical lessons. So, we try to push about 20% curriculum, coaching, mentoring, these other things. And then the other is really 80%. How do we develop those on-the-job opportunities to learn, those opportunities to manage a project, an initiative, that could really grow that person as they continue on that journey. And I think the other piece that we've been getting a little bit better at, we're talking about now, is, how do we create these little micro certifications internally? So we're very much a project-centric organization. So you think about, what is the heartbeat that runs your company? Ours is projects. We got something like 2,000 active projects on our books. So how can we create these little micro certifications in project financials or project management that allow a person to get on a career inside Esco and get these certifications to grow to that next level? So certainly another big piece of that is, how are you doing engineering your leadership development, your succession planning model?
So Ray, when you talked, and I think I heard you say this right, that you have a summer program, a reading program, and did I hear that correct?
Yeah, so what I would call it typically is like just your internship program. Your colleges were bringing in juniors and seniors, whether in finance, accounting, electrical engineering, construction management, and we'll host those. We call it the summer learning program because it's more than just an internship. We're developing these people. We've put them in real live situations and actually adding value to what we do on a daily basis. And so we'll typically have, I would say, anywhere from 8 to 15 folks go through our summer learning program. And at the end of the day, we probably hire 80% of those folks into our workforce once they graduate. So it's really been a great recruiting tool as well. You went back, what's your strategies to go about recruiting and adding to the workforce? So that's been a great recruitment level to really solidify that bench strength.
So when you look at your leadership team and you guys are in the room and you're talking about these intern programs and these mentorships and coaching and all the different, the certification program, the micro certification program, do all those things come from just brainstorming session? I know that, we were trying to set up a date to come to your company and you guys are in a planning session. Is this something that you do with your leadership team quarterly, monthly, yearly? Where do these ideas come from? What's the generation of ideas? Where do they come from?
Yeah. So I think, for us, it's getting back to, how we run our business and how do you engineer those opportunities? I think that was a great question. So within the EOS model, if not familiar with it, one of the things that you sit down from a leadership standpoint is what are those core values? What are those behaviors that you want to generate that will drive your culture? The next big piece that goes into that. What's your 10-year picture? What's this organization going to look like in 10 years? And then you go back to, what is that 3-year look ahead? Then you're trying to really solidify not just that picture, but also those financial pieces. What does it mean for the organization? What does it mean for your people? And then ultimately you develop a 1-year plan. That 1-year plan is which creates those goals. What are those big goals in which those become our strategic initiatives? And those things happen in real time. And then we'll go through what they call a level 10 meeting once a week that looks at not just your rocks, those are the strategies, but it's also there's a section called IDS in there. And any owner or any person in that meeting can bring up an issue that says, hey, I've got this idea. I want help from this team to solve this idea, this issue. And so a lot of those, that continuous learning, I would say, is built into that EOS model through those level 10 IDS sessions. And we've gotten some really great ideas that have come out of those regular meetings. And it's EOS is tough. We started this journey 2 years ago with our leadership team, and now we've deployed that whole EOS, that level 10 meeting throughout our entire organization, down to the smallest team even. So we're really seeing the return on that investment. But it does take a journey, but it does get your entire team speaking the same language, which is really important. And then if you do have ideas, which in any organization comes up, how does the employee run the business versus the business running the employees? And so EOS has given us those opportunities to implement that process.
I love the EOS model. We have several of our CEOs that are in a peer group that I'm in are using the EOS. We've looked at the EOS model and we use some versions of that in our meetings and determining, what are the most important things and how we stay on track with those things. So, we have had a lot of conversations around the EOS model. So Ray, just kind of pivoting more to the personal side of this, if you had a crystal ball and you look at, 10 years from now, automation, robotics, all the innovation that's going on, workforce development, what do you see as some of the challenges that are going to be faced from the CEO position and senior leadership moving forward? Because the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast, we set this up so that our team members could hear from people like you, successful, developed leaders, to come in and tell a little bit about how you got started, but then also what you're doing to continue to develop. What do you see as the headwinds and the opportunities? Not just what could go wrong, but what are the opportunities you see in the next 5 to 10 years going forward?
Yeah, no, I think it's a great question. Boy, I had to think really hard on this one, and honestly, I think the two biggest things that businesses, manufacturers, and especially manufacturers and communities is the need for power. I think if you look at just across the U.S. grid today, I think it's 2024, there was something like 4 gigawatts of power. And it's projected by 2035, it's going to need to require something like 123 gigawatts. That's like a 30x increase in power needs for our businesses. That was a Deloitte and Touche study. The next, I think, biggest challenge is obviously the use of water. In 2027, half of our water usage is going to go to the AI infrastructure. So you think about businesses, communities, especially manufacturers, those are some pretty significant headwinds, on top of certainly the workforce development. So, companies that get ahead, what are they doing around power usage, efficiencies? I think you're seeing some really big players in manufacturers actually build their own power plants, their own water facilities. You're hearing, folks, refiring up nuke plants. This is a big headwind. I think in our local community, they're talking about tapping into a water filter or reservoirs that are actually a lot deeper than we've ever gone before. So we need to get a handle on those power and to be our water usage and understanding how those are going to impact businesses, on top of certainly how are we adapting AI innovation to backfill that workforce that's not going to be there.
I know that there are business development members on our team that are listening to this podcast right now that are smiling so big when they hear about infrastructure to the power grid, because there's a lot of nuts and bolts that go into the infrastructure for the power grid. So we're happy to hear those words. And quite frankly, that build out's been going on for the last 20 years, and it'll probably be going on for another 20 years with the increases in the need for power. So I appreciate you bringing us into that. So Ray, when you look back on your journey and you look back and you see the people that helped you along your way, who are some of those mentors that helped you on your journey and why you would call those out, what they did for you?
Yeah, first and, foremost, I would say every single Esco employee has made me who I am today. I try to do a good job of trying to reach out and get to know our folks. I try to write personal thank you on each of their anniversaries and really listening, and because this is their business at the end of the day. From big vendors, certainly our founder, Wayne Engel, and his son, David, who bought the business from his dad in 1988. Unfortunately, Dave passed away about 10 years ago. I guess the blessing in disguise was I got to know Wayne a lot deeper and know the backstories of Esco. It's those stories that I continually try to tell today, because those are what define us as organizations, is going through difficult challenges and how do we handle those challenges. And Wayne was the entrepreneur, and that's the cool thing about why I look at Esco today as our employee ownership culture or innovation. Wayne was your entrepreneur. I think he started, bought, sold, shut down, went bankrupt, probably 24 businesses, since he started the business back in the 60s. His son, Dave, he was about being a people first leader. I mean, he knew everyone's name. He knew their families, in both those things, entrepreneurialism, that innovation, that people first, those things are still within the Esco culture today. And, I'm the youngest of five brothers. God bless my mom's heart. And, my biggest strategy is learning what they did right and also what they did wrong. And honestly, I've probably maximized that to every person that I've run into. I've tried to learn at least something from the littlest of meetings, to the biggest of meetings. There's always something we can learn from someone. And then, my legacy is, how do you transfer that to the folks that are around you? And a lot of times, I think for leaders out there, it's not always about what you say. You don't have to be the most eloquent person to say something. A lot of this just demonstrate the positive behaviors, because, either people are watching us, whether they're watching you or listening to you, they're watching you both ways. And, if your words aren't there, your behaviors can be. And when you can get them both on the same playing field, that's when that's when, the magic can happen. And certainly, and one of the things that what I loved about Dave, what I think he taught me, which is a book that I'll share you, but wanted me to share a book. And he shared this book probably 20 years ago with me. And the fascinating thing about Dave is like, it is crazy. It's like in the toughest of situations, like, losing an employee member, losing a team member through a bad, illness, or, his ability to pivot and focus on moving to a positive outcome, it to me was always about energy leadership. It's like, how can you recognize and maybe to a certain degree compartmentalize going through those stages of grief. But the sooner we act as leaders, the better we're going to be for our employees that are around us. And so he had me read this book called Energy Leadership. And it really talks about that journey, but it also talks about our inner energy. How do we maximize that? How do we focus that energy on where we can actually make an impact in those around us? And the quicker we can tap into that from a leader, the better we can influence folks around us for those positive outcomes that we want.
I love that you recognize the founders of the company. The founder of our company was in our office today. I was with him an hour before I came over and just was reminded of the investment he made in me. It just is incredible to think back on how he navigated, getting the business started, but at the same time, he was investing in us. And we think about it as being very strategic, but quite frankly, it's what you said. It's about showing up, being consistent, doing the right things, creating a language around success, and we were doing those things without even knowing it. We were just doing those things. And then we created a language of how we wanted to go forward. And Frank Martin and Steve Schultes owe a great deal to those guys because they invested in me and allowed me to be a part of this team early on in my career. And then they put up with me when I was a kid. I mean, I was 18 years old when I came here. I was just a kid. I didn't know anything. And for them to put up with me, my heart is so grateful to them. So I appreciate mentioning the book, Energy Leadership, and we'll link that on the podcast post when it comes out. And Ray, just so before we go, I want to let people, how can they get in touch with you? We talked a lot about today, innovation, automation. You guys are doing it. And if there's people listening today that want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, just email me direct, Ray Brown, RayBrown at theescogroup.com, THEESCOGROUP.com. Or you can send me a text. My cell is 319-350-0070. Just let me know who you are and where you heard of me. Otherwise, I probably won't answer your text. Or get me on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn as well, just like everybody else.
Well, Ray, I appreciate you spending time with us on the podcast today. Just like Daniel said, a lot of energy. I knew it was coming, and I appreciate you bringing it today.
Bill, hey, really appreciate, one of the things that definitely want to do. I know you were a part of the UPenn program, getting that leadership certificate, leading employee environment. So also owe it quite a bit to those folks with Praxis, one of our great partners out there in the employee ownership community, but just really humbled and thankful for, Billy, yourself, and folks like Daniel. And I know there's a lot of other Billys and Daniels out there. One of the things I think we all pride ourselves on in the fantastic ESOP community that we have. So again, really appreciate it for being able to come on here today, Billy.
All right, Ray, then we'll talk to you soon.
Giddy up.
Giddy up. Man, I love that interview with Ray Brown. That dude brings it. I knew it was going to happen, and I love what he brought to us today. And Ray covered so many points. My page is written all over. But one of the things that I really loved when he talked about creating lasting value for not only his employees, but for the families of those employees, creating lasting value, creating better community, creating those town halls, micro certifications. I mean, Ray's company is doing it. And I'm so proud to be affiliated with great companies like the Esco Group. So I'm already looking forward to our next episode. But until then, tighten up.
Thank you for tuning in to the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership podcast, brought to you by the proud employee owners of Threaded Fastening. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please subscribe to, rate, and review the Nuts and Bolts of Leadership wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Do you have a leadership story to tell or a question to ask? We'd love to hear from you. Email us at podcast@threadedfasteners.com. That's podcast@threadedfasteners.com. This show is made possible by our family at Threaded Fasteners, Inc., where our mission is to create value in and for the people we serve. Interested in learning more about TFI and how we create value in our team, in our community, and in our customers? Visit us at threadedfasteners.com. Thanks again for listening. This show is edited and produced by Johnny Glenn and our friends at Deep Fried Studios.